Hello and welcome to Nick V Uncensored. Today we've got Gene Decode, and today we're going to be talking about the solar flash. We're going to be talking about Trump and Israel, and also what the next 5 years looks like for planet Earth. Gene, thank you so much for joining me, sir. How are you, and what have you been up to?
I was just really busy. I'm doing well and just so busy with the website and everything going on and trying to keep up with everything as things are happening so fast now. It's mind-boggling. I know the masses, the normies, as they're called, don't see it yet because they don't do research. But there's so many platforms now with excellent information about what's going on. The platforms I usually used to watch are normies, and they think the 17 board and that stuff was a psyop, so they don't have the actual information of what's going on like in Ukraine and that. So I don't follow them anymore because it's just they have TDS so bad I can't take it.
Of course, and that's Trump deranged syndrome. For those who
Yeah.
are not sure. Now, Gene, we've got a lot of new followers, and obviously, I used to interview you quite a lot. I think it was almost every 2 weeks, and then it became every month, and then we had this big gap where I hadn't spoken to you. So why don't you tell just a very short background of who you are and how you know so much and you have so much knowledge?
Oh, sure. So I did 21 years in the U.S. Navy, just about 21, a few months short. In the U.S. Navy submarine force, I was on 5 different submarines. I got high rank. I got really high clearance. I had a spec op sub and a SEAL sub for my first sub. My third sub was a spec op sub. And we did things that made me kind of question the narrative. Well, not kind of, absolutely question the narrative of the Cold War at the time with the Soviets. There was things I had to do that I was like, we're not supposed to be doing this, and this doesn't make any sense. And then additionally, I've always been kind of different and off the wall. And my dad worked for Martin Marietta before it was Lockheed Martin. And he was always like kind of like walking through Tesla's lab. There were, all kinds of experiments going on with high energy electricity and all that. And, the stuff he was building, this is back in the 60s, the part for a Mars rover in the 60s. So we're going to the moon, but yet he's building one for Mars that's going up on the next satellite to Mars, next launch to Mars. And I'm like, okay. And then, so I couldn't talk to my friends about any of that. So I've always had kind of a different point of view on things. And then, I'm born with remote viewing abilities and other abilities that made it a little bit difficult to fit in. And then I got into martial arts because of my first submarine with the SEALs. Fortunately, got the best instructor in the SEALs there is. He ran the SAR school, so I studied with him, and that dramatically changed me because in 1990, by that time, I had my own students. I was already a multiple black belt by that time, and I was one day I got attacked by a Samoan in Kapiolani Park and dislocated both my knees after I did a flying scissor kick on him. He dislocated my knees. He was so big when we landed on the ground. And then I took him out and put him in a trash can and reset my knees using my car door. But the next day, my student came back from Japan and he had a sword. He wanted to learn sword passes. So we went up on Tantalus, and short story was I wound up, because of the dislocated knee and a shift, my knee was coming apart. I put the sword in the top of my kneecap, and I had iron body training by then. So my chi was enough that I just cut open the skin and you could see the kneecap. But I bent his sword. I didn't break it, but I bent it. And then I wound up from that having a situation where later on in that day, I died for half an hour because of that. And so in that situation that, God offered me I asked to come back, and God said in certain conditions and situations, which I took. So that completely changed me. And from that time on, I've been working on completely integrating all the information God gave me during that time. And then, of course, since 1976, I've been working on the martial arts and all of that, and working on how my thoughts work and how what are my thoughts and all of that, which most people don't realize that most of their thoughts are not their own. So, from all of those things, wound up in 1990, I had an epiphany. I was kept trying to make the next rank and I couldn't for like almost 12 years. And so at one
Interesting.
point, a person said a certain thing that had made rank that was my boss at the time, and he was just terrible. He didn't know anything, and I asked him if it was because of the quota because you had he was African American, and he said no, it was big. In his case, yes, it was that. And I asked if this other African American in another building, he made the rank above him, was the same reason. He said no, he was a Mason, and I had never heard that word on this world. On the antimatter world, I'd heard it, so that woke me up. I was that put a chill down my back because those are the people that the first level that run the camps, the concentration camps where humans live in them on antimatter Earth. And so from that point on, I tried to prove that what I saw coming here, because I saw that world coming like really fast here. So I went to the Supreme Court Law Library and looked up the Congressional Budget, Section 5, 1970, and found because I knew where everything was on the antimatter world before they burned it all. The $150 million grant to create an immunovirus targeting the T4 cell or the S6. And of course, we know what that is today. And at Fort Detrick in Maryland, a $150 million grant to be done, research to be done by the KGB, the CIA, and the MI6. And I'm like, yeah, that throws out the Cold War completely. So that's kind of a short synopsis of how I got to who I am and
Wow.
where it is.
Yeah, really interesting background you've got there, Gene. Thank you for sharing that. Um, where we start? Let's start with obviously you're a very big Trump supporter, and with what do you think's going on now, especially with this phone call recently with Trump to Netanyahu, telling him he's crazy, he shouldn't go for Lebanon, and nobody likes Israel anymore because of this. Is it scripted? Is Netanyahu not with us anymore? Because there was also something about him about a month ago or so where he was missing. He didn't turn up to, this meeting, and something about his airplane, having ambulance on the airplane or something like that. But for you, you probably tell me, oh, it's all scripted. I mean, what do you think's going on here?
Yeah, that's what I'll tell you. Well done. So, what's going on is that during the first Iranian conflict, where Iran and Israel were exchanging missiles before Epic Fury, his bunker got hit along with the Israel, what they call the Israel Pentagon, which is underneath Israel, uh, and he died. And
When?
so this is before Epic Fury. I can't remember the exact date right now. I'm sorry. But so what we've seen since is Netanyahu 2.0. And so
So,
when it came out that, he wasn't around and he wasn't coming in, and they did a AI video, CGI kind of AI thing with him having a cup of coffee and his fingers were wrong and he tilted the coffee, which was up to the brim and it didn't spill. And for people that don't understand that, like you see one with Trump where he has an extra finger or something, or you see like with Charlie Kirk where the ring finger, the ring disappears and reappears. That's on intentional. Those are comps because they people at that high level, they have teams of people that go through those videos and make sure there's not a single flaw. And they have super AI that can catch anything. And to have a mistake like that means it was meant to be there in the first place. So that was the reason. And so now what we're seeing now that we have 2.0 is Trump showing the people who are still somewhat awake enough to see it and understand that he is not controlled by Israel. The U.S. is not controlled by Israel since the visit of, well, the summons, not really the visit, the summons of the King of England and the UK, and our sovereignty granted to us, and Trump became the beekeepers, it said. Um, we have had sovereignty. And so he has now taken that one step further with us, with Netanyahu, showing that we now have taken over the Mossad and control Mossad and control the have taken, for the majority. You still have cells that are on the other side, but we have are in control of Israel and not the other way around, where Israel's in control of the U.S. Back to you, Nick.
Interesting. Right. So what is the purpose of Charlie Kirk dying then? And and who's killing all these people in Gaza?
Well, Charlie was he was also put in witness protection, like quite a few people have recently. And that was because they were going to kill him. And so they could not protect him otherwise. So they removed him because that was the Mossad and Netanyahu that were going to kill him. And so, and then that revealed who his wife was and what she was involved with, and her family lineage, and her mother, what she's involved, which is research on anti-gravity and plasma energy and all of that. And that Erica is in the CIA, more than likely. She was giving a speech in a skiff in Fort Huachuca in Arizona. And I mean, they don't just go to Hollywood and interview. How would you like to give a brief? Because you're pretty. No, that's that she has a clearance to be in there and all of that, and even on that base, let alone in that dome and in that skiff. So, and giving a brief and having the knowledge and all of that. And then, of course, her family and all of what's involved there. So he was taken into witness protection because he got a lot of information regarding Mossad. So it allowed for Trump and the White Hats to get control of Mossad.
So so let's get this right. So Netanyahu is 2.0. You said that Mossad and Netanyahu tried to kill Charlie Kirk. So I'm guessing that the 2.0 Netanyahu is a deep state Netanyahu's 2.0, not a white hat 2.0. Correct?
No, no, other way around. He's White Hat.
So
It's just
why did they have to take out Charlie Kirk then?
Well, they took out Charlie Kirk before Netanyahu 2.0
Got
was
it.
completely in place. The deep state had theirs in. So I guess we would actually call him 3.0.
So, do you think since Erica Kirk is a traitor and she's a Mossad CIA agent, do you think that she is aware that Charlie Kirk has been gone into custody, into protection, witness protection?
I'm sure she's aware of it because what the story was with his assassination is absolutely impossible and ridiculous. You don't shoot a 30-06 at somebody when you can't see them, first of all, because you didn't have line of sight. The tent was covering it. And the gentleman, put it together, take it apart, drop it in the forest. I mean, ridiculous. And then a 30-06 in the neck. It's like my stepfather told me a story. He was out hunting with his buddies, and they were all sleeping, and the squirrel kept running back and forth, making all kinds of noise. So somebody would shut that stupid squirrel up, and he took out a 30-06 and shot the squirrel. And they all like, what the what? Because they're loud, and all that was left of the squirrel, which was a fairly decent sized squirrel, was fur. So it just blows that caliber just it would blow half the neck off and the spine and all of that. It's not going to be like what they showed. And then they completely paved the place over, and they had military drones in there. And then there's the research by the Mossad into the hospital before this happened, into the hospital, the doctors, all of that, and then that were involved, and the shooter as well. So there were research being done on everything before it happened by Israel, as well as by China, by the CIA, by so many people. They already knew it was already a setup.
So, what do you think Charlie Kirk's opinion would be of his wife, Erica Kirk? Do you think he always knew she was CIA and maybe his handler? And do you think that she was organizing and helping Mossad to assassinate him? What was her role in this, in your opinion?
I think that he knew all along, but he was using her. She was using him. He was using her. He was using her to get the funding he needed for Turning Point USA and to get up to where it was a worldwide organization and get, inroads to everybody. into the presidency and all of these people. And, he was a devout Christian and a good man. And so he was, like Trump has had to do, he had infiltrated the dark hats to be able to do what he needed to do to get a Christian revival going in the world.
So what's Erica Kirk's intentions today? Is she on the good side or is she on the bad side?
I think she's still bad side, and she may actually be. I'm looking at the pictures. It looks pretty convincing. She may actually be John Benet Ramsey's, the daughter, the young lady there that was taken in, I think, Boulder or somewhere near that, Colorado.
And why haven't we ever seen the faces of the children? Why have they always not shown the faces?
Because they don't want people to put two and two together
With what?
with the information, so that that's the deep state. They don't want that put out there, because then that wakes people up to, what's going on. Like with me, with the stuff with the that woke me up is putting two and two together over time. And you get one thing after another, and it becomes, Occam's razor. And eventually you get to where you get past the law of averages, where it's impossible for it to be what you thought it was. And it has to be the other way. And I tried to prove it wrong, and I proved it right. So, this
so now we've got 2.0 Netanyahu. You're saying that this 2.0 is a white hat. Obviously, there are many people around the Netanyahu bribing or giving or donating money to Donald Trump, like Miriam Elderson, 200 million, Zionist. Do you think that now that Trump has kind of, gone back to Netanyahu, calling him crazy and saying that it's because of me you're not in prison, and they now people don't like Israel, and trying to put him, not down, but he's telling him off, but pretending to be on his side, telling him off to not upset the donors or trigger for another donor to want to kill Trump. Do you think that's strategic?
Yes, it's like the Streisand effect, that Trump does this all the time. He did it with the Epstein files. Are we still talking about that? And everybody's like, and then, get Elon Musk to come out and say, well, it's because he's in them. And, that's all a psyop too. So that the Dems and those people would demand them to come out, and then they're in them. In the bad man, Trump's in them in a good way, because he kicked, Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago and everything else, and testified against him and all kinds of stuff. So this is the same exact thing, where you've got him saying this, and what it does is it draws the attention to the fact that, used to be, as a white person, and I would say I did on the bombing of the hospital in the Gaza, and people would say, I'm anti-Semitic immediately, and you're racist. Now that's not true, because of this, Trump saying this. It's making, when you say, oh, well, now people don't like Israel because of you. And then people are going to research that and, well, why don't people like Israel? I thought people liked Israel. And then they're going to look at what's really going on and go, I don't either. I don't like what's going on with the Gaza. I don't like what they've been doing with this. I don't like what they've been doing. So it wakes people up. It's how you got to draw their attention to that. It's not all what people thought, and that Israel is not really what people thought in the first place. And they research how it was set up by the Rothschilds in the first place, with the transfer agreement and all these things, with Hitler, the mustache man, from World War II that ran Germany. Then people will find out that, yes, there are good Jewish people in Israel, but that's not who's been running the place. It's the Zionists that's been running the place since the beginning, and then some.
Absolutely, yes, there is a Zionist. There are very good Jews, and there are many Jews in Israel who are against what's going on with Zionism. They're very aware of it, and they've been speaking out against it, and they've actually been supporting Palestine. So I've seen those videos, and I've seen the Orthodox Jews that talk about that. So it's not the Jews, it's the Zionists that are the Bolsheviks and the Khazarian mafia, and the state of Israel, with this Luciferian agenda they have, and they're using Judaism to mask their true identity. What do you think about that?
Well, that's actually precisely right. When the Zionists Or if you want the Scion, Scion, is because they're originally from not from Earth, they're from the Scion star system. They blew up their two homeworlds of Ariana and came here and landed in the Pontic Steppes in Ukraine. Um, and so then they became known as the name changers because they were grabbing people on the Silk Road and taking their identities and their names and going back and taking money and things that they were owed and all kinds of stuff. And so the czar at that time said, "You've got to take one of the three Abrahamic religions and stop sacrificing children to Baal Moloch," which is now in the Moloch is actually now being talked about in Congress and Senate in the U.S. That's now revealed. And so you have they took the Jewish religion, but they made it Talmudic Jewish religion. In other words, from the Book of Solomon and all of that, and all those satanic rites and warlock witchcraft, kind of dark magic Satanism, and all that added straight into it. And then as they migrated outwards as name changers, Khazarian Mafia, whatever you want to call them, they went to Spain, and that's when the Spanish were the same way. The leaders of Spain said, "You got to stop this stuff." So then they became the Jesuits. That's when you got the Jesuits started. So it's one thing after another. It's still all the same group of satanic beings that came to this planet to rule it and feel that they're superior to humanity. In that they deserve to rule it because they're superior and their God, Satan, is the one God that they follow. So it's not the one, truly the one God, but that's what they follow. So back to you.
Yeah, I understand that these beings are basically disconnected from source field or the Christ consciousness. They're disconnected. So everything is inverted. They just want to destroy what's organic and replace it with synthetic. That's what I understand. Are these beings literally came here from another place in physical forms, or did they incarnate here in the human body?
They literally came here from another world in physical form.
So no incarnate, but and some incarnations, would you say it's a mix?
Well, since that time, yes, and they periodically, because they're disconnected from source field, they don't have the ability to connect and get original information and knowledge directly from God. And because of that, and their desire to control the stargates on Earth, the 12 gates, well, that requires genetic code of the 2L bloodlines. So each one bloodline has one of the is the DNA is one of the keys. That's why the 17 board says the war is for your DNA. That's a big part of the reason. So every once in a while they'll marry one of the bloodlines they're missing to have the genetic marker to be able to access the Stargate. And they keep trying and trying, but it doesn't work, and they haven't still figured out with the genetic marker why they still can't access it, because you're still disconnected from source field. It doesn't matter if you have the genetic marker in your genetics. You aren't connected. And
Yeah.
the gates are built such that they recognize that, just like the Golden Dome technology up in Alaska. It recognized it and it wouldn't let them use it. And so it's the exact same thing. So that's why you see like Princess Diana, where they married a commoner so that they could get up. They keep trying. They never give up. And so back to you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, thanks. Yeah, and I think Princess Diana was source field energy. She was pure source. She was, and she had such a bright aura. She even said herself that I lead from the heart, not the head, and that says a lot. That statement that she knew a
Yeah.
lot about spirituality.
Yes, indeed. I totally agree.
Okay, cool. So we've got these beings now. They poisoned Atlantis, I think 12,500 years ago. They fell from 5D to 3D consciousness, a very, very slow erosion. And now here we are. They want to do a full lock on the souls who are dormant currently into this digital idea, I think, where they hijack their frequency into their own synthetic hologram that they want to create, where we don't reincarnate and we forever reincarnate automatically, from what I understand, so that they could forever get loosh energy harvesting from us.
Yes.
And this is what this digital ID is about. And there's going to be a point from source, and I think other galactic beings who are helping. I don't know how true that is, but what I do understand is that there's going to be There's loads of solo flares, but a solo flash, a main flash coming, where this is going to lock the low frequency control energy, the control system energy out of our Earth energy, hologram, if you like. Can you explain that to me, please?
Okay, so timelines exist because there's a difference in the quantum resonance. At the quantum level, that's what quantum is. It's a packet vibration around every particle, and it has exactly the same packet vibration in this universe. In another universe, which are infinite parallel universes, they have a different quantum packet vibration. So back in 2008, I believe it was, and Kerry Cassidy has interviewed two gentlemen about this. Excuse me, hold on a second. Uh, they found that their timeline that for their new world order was not. They're using looking glass, and the more they used it, the less it looked like they were going to be able to get the new world order. They had thought it was absolute, and then it kept getting less and less probability, and so they brought in an expert to look at the algorithms and to tell them why. And he said that if you don't get it set by 2012, you will never get it, because by 2012 there will be only two timelines, which is yours, the Armageddon line, and then the golden line of God. And at that time, once the CME comes after that period of time, then the two lines will be from 2012 will be the only two lines. When the CME comes, they will completely separate, and you will not be able to do anything to get back to influence the God line. And not only that, but your line will be extinguished after the CME, within about 12 to 14 years. All life on Earth, on your Earth, will extinguish itself, like you saw in the movie Intergalactic. And so were desperately trying to change it. And every time they did, they sent teams back in time to make adjustments and all kinds of things. And every time they did, they just made it more absolute. It just made it worse and worse and worse. And then in 2012, there was an event they caused that caused three minor coronal mass emissions to pass between this, which was the event, to actually cause the event. It's like the tale of the man who saw death hit in a certain city, so he went all the way to this other city, and death met him there. And so it's kind of like that. You try to avoid something, and by what you do, you actually wind up causing it. So they actually caused it. They created three CMEs, and the Golden Dome negated them as they passed between the moon and the Earth. And so that then set the timelines separate from each other, separating more and more. And the coronal mass emission will be the final complete separation, and the upgrade for the ones on the golden line to 3D, 4D, 5D positive completely, without this negative interference for a very, very, very long time, at least 1,000 years. And then on the negative line, their line will, as I said, eventually extinguish, but that's descension to negative 3D, 4D, and 5D.
So, when do you, from the ancient texts and the and hidden knowledge, when do you think we are close to the solar flash? And the other thing I want to say before you answer that is, I want to say that there will be signs that I've read, and one of the signs that we're coming closer to the solar flash is that the ozone layer will become so thin, or the electromagnetic field of Earth will be so thin, that birds will lose navigation, so they won't fly, and even aeroplanes will stop flying, and they won't tell us the truth. It might be about oil or something like that, but they will be able to, they won't have their navigation. GPS will not work. What do you think about that? And when do you think how close do you think we are?
Well, I know the exact date, the problem that it's going to happen. The problem is that they have messed with the calendar so many times, they don't even know what year we're actually in. We're certainly not 2026. It can be many, many years, even over a decade distorted. So, it was put out a long time ago that it was supposed to be 2031 for the CME, but it could be, that would could be 2041. It could be even more. I don't know because of what they did. And then the nature of it is that depending on where a person is at, how it affects them. So if a person is very spiritual and very kind and compassionate and is pretty on, they may not even notice it. It may happen and go by. And for a lot of people, and then for the people that are really, as the line separates completely, that are really bad, well, they'll notice it, but they won't be on our earth anymore. They'll be on the Armageddon line. So they won't be here to say anything. And a lot of people the traumatic events may not stick in their memory as they go through that. And people may not actually remember it. A lot of people, and so that's the information I have as far as I can tell you.
Now, I want to tell you what I think about something. Now, I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. It's more frequency. Now,
Yes,
if they're anchored in ego and fear and even guilt, it's a low frequency. And I think what you said, absolutely, it's about compassion and love. But I think most importantly, are you authentic? Are you in your truth? Do you speak the truth when uncomfortable? And I think that's, what do you think about that?
that's absolutely it. It's you go to where you resonate always. It's all about resonation. And as far as what you're saying about the birds, we actually are seeing it's not just geoengineering. We're actually seeing the first effect of that with the bees. The bees are having issues. They're the very first ones.
So, from my information that I've got was when we start seeing the GPS stop, it doesn't work anymore. The ozone layer's thinning. I was told that that was a marker that we could be 6 months away from that. What do you think about that?
That's possible.
Okay. And also, there's a lot of synthetic life here that was populated by these beings to destabilize souls from awakening. And many are NPCs, as we call them. And
Yes.
a lot of them have synthetic souls, and they're not real. They're real is in the human flesh, but they're not real in the eternal sense. And they're here to be connected to the hive mind to make us feel we're the black sheep and there's something wrong with us. And awakening subconsciously is means we're crazy. What do you think about that? And what would happen to these NPCs when we cross over?
They'll not make the shift unless they become individual human beings, kind of like in the movie Free Guy. It is possible they can do that, but they're here to make a massive population of beings that go with the party line that do exactly what they're told. And it reminds me, I went for a medical checkup and I was trying to tell the doctor a certain thing, and he just kept repeating a certain line. And I said, no, this is what I'm telling you. And it's like he couldn't hear me at all. And I kept saying the same thing, and he said the same thing. It had nothing to do with what I was saying. I'm like, finally, I go, oh, never mind, because I realized NPC. He can't get beyond the programming. It's impossible. And so I'm just talking I might as well talk to just not talk at all. And so that's because if you bury the human within that mass of people like that, they feel that that's what you should do. You should go along, do what you're told, do this, do that, and they all believe this, so that must be true. If everybody believes it, that must be the truth. Where it's like Gandhi said, just because everybody but one person believes something doesn't make it true, and that doesn't make the one person wrong if he believes something that no one else believes. One person can have the truth, and everybody else be wrong, and that's why they buried the humanity in this massive NPC infestation. And then also on top of that, they took a lot of clones with the polio vaccinations. They took a lot of genetic material and they punched out lots and lots of clones. So the white hats now have clone hunters that they're going out and, not mostly special forces types.
Wow. And this is to populate the earth. more and more of fake people.
Yeah, to get well, the clone hunters are getting rid of them, and the NPCs won't make the shift.
When I speak to I mean, there's people that are, who are, spiritually aware, who ask, "Why am I here?" There's more to this. I'm not just a body. There's a reason why I'm here. There's a purpose. I can feel it. There's something more. But then you've got an NPC or that says, "When I die, I just die." And they don't think about why they're here because they don't have true self-awareness. They just want to work to make money and to protect their identity, which is their ego. So, and because their identity is their software, whereas a soul knows that they can observe their identity and their ego because they know it's not them. They know that there's peace behind that, and that's their essence. But how can you differentiate the difference between an NPC and a soul who's dormant and fragmented from trauma and is completely asleep that also operates from the ego? How do you know the difference?
Well, a person that's fragmented through, and has PTSD, they'll have PTSD from the trauma, but a NPC would not have PTSD from it, not like a human being, and they would still the human with PTSD will be questioning things, and they'll be having issues about it, and they'll be questioning certain things. And so, it's not just NPCs. You also have the Anunnaki that created mankind, along with the Alpha Draco and a couple other groups. And so that's been inbred so much that you could be the only human in your family. And so, it's like there was a member of my family when all this, the stuff was coming with the jab and all that. And I said, if there was an event coming and it meant your sovereignty, do you want to know? And the person told me no. And I said, if it meant your soul, would you want to know? And the person told me, I don't know if I have a soul. And I don't want to know if I have a soul. And I don't care if I have one or not. And I mean, I'm like, wow, we can't be related, but you can be, but you're not really related in the true sense, is you're not both from source you're not able to access source. And so that just floored me that a person could actually think that. And so it's along that kind of line where they don't feel they have a soul because there's 13 bloodlines that are mankind and of the bloodlines that came. And each one is an oversoul. And all the beings in that oversoul lineage of that one share the same soul. They're oversouled. And so if you say there's 13 for about 2.3 billion people, and you do the math, how much soul do they have? Soul energy? Not much. And that's your moral compass. That's your sense of self. That's your ego is not you. And your sense of right and wrong and all of those things. So that's the massive difference we have on Earth.
It's crazy, isn't it? Wow.
Yes.
Yes, I love knowing this. I mean, I love learning about this. It's very interesting to understand the architecture of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
because you get empty vessels that have nothing. You get oversouls, you get Draco overlays, you get AI overlays. Because what I understand is that the NPC's pineal gland is connected to the electromagnetic field of Earth, whereas a soul's human is connected to the source field. What do you think about that?
It's connected to the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, source
directly.
field, Holy Spirit, Christ consciousness.
Yes. And so that's why, like when I sun gaze, I power up directly my eighth chakra, which goes straight into the pineal, and, power up my third eye and all of that. And I don't drink tea for that reason because it pulls up fluoride like crazy. You can drink other teas like yerba mate or something, but not the tea plant itself. And then avoid fluorides as much as possible and all of that. But even still, with a human being that has a fluoridated, calcified pineal, they can break that free in a moment because that connection to source, if they get a sudden massive DMT, like in a dream where they get a huge DMT pulse, it can shatter that in one moment. And that's the difference. They still have a pineal gland, but it's not connected to the right place for one thing, and they can't pulse it like that for another thing, and they can't build it up for another thing. So it's just, a lot of differences between their architecture, so to speak, and humanities.
So interesting. So the solar flash is going to happen. It's going to come about, and the way I understand is that it's not going to happen and then we wake up and everything's different. It's I understand that the matrix, there's going to be an overlay of two earths that phases out, and it could happen between the overlay is could take months. And what I understand is that the matrix has to play out the storyline that makes sense to the matrix. For an example, an NPC, a friend of yours that was an NPC that is going to be removed from your perspective. So the storyline might be that he's going to move away to another country, or you just guys fizzled out connection, and eventually you will not be able to perceive them in your field. What do you think about that?
That's already because the energy is already changing. The Earth's already at 5D. The sun is already at 5D. Most of the planets are at 5D. So it's already occurring where people are moving away, drifting away, disappearing, dying from this, dying from the jab, dying from that, because they are not going to fit in to how the world will be after the CME. So it's already taking place. So when it does take place, you know, there may be like a lot of sudden deaths or something, but it not so needed because it's already occurred.
Right. So we're going to see a bit more of this. And so what does the next 5 years look like within the next 5 years? Assume the solar flash has happened. After the solar flash, what does every day look like? What does the world look like?
Well, it depends on if you're 3D, 4D, or 5D.
I'm talking. Oh, right. I'm talking about for in the golden age. I'm
Yeah.
assuming everybody watching this knows there's something wrong with the reality. They've questioned themselves, which means that there's an observer within. So I'm
Right.
assuming we're all going to be going on to the golden age.
Yeah. Well, again, it depends after the flash whether you're 3D, 4D, or 5D because you'll be on that Earth. They're different Earths. They're different actual physical localities. 4D and 5D are within the same Earth, but they're vibrating differently, so you won't see at a different resonance. 4D won't see 5D. 3D isn't even actually on Earth. That's actually Venus. So, and there's already was a guy there that's, all by himself walking around. There's airport stuff running, cars running, and he doesn't understand. And, he was leaving keys and people would find it here because they're quantumly entangled. But even though they're quantumly entangled, without the vibrational resonant structure, you're not going to just jump from 3D to 5D or be aware of it because you don't have the vibrational structure to do so. And so, as one, depending on where they are in their ascension, and that's why the last thing on the boards, the 17 boards, was ascension. And so this is what we're looking at is where somebody at, where's their genetic material upgrades at, and when that occurs, they will be on a different Earth. And there's actually an ISIS space station picture of an Earth behind ours in orbit. And so that's already physically there. It's just the person that took that picture was already at that resonance, so he could take a picture of it. If you are not at that resonance, you can't even take a picture of it. But if you are, you can. It's like, in Peru, I went down to Peru and I was doing certain kind of spiritual work, and I took a picture of a stargate that opened up, and it was like a complete rainbow, perfect rainbow. I mean, just vibrant like crazy. And inside it, around the sun, inside it, you could see another planet. You could see the surface of another planet. And I showed this lady, and she goes, "Oh my word! I got to tell my group." And she ran across. This is at Machu Picchu. She ran down across, and up over to the other hill over there. And she came back, and she goes, "How come only about 3 other people, my group of like 30 some people, can see it?" Because they have the resonance. Well, the other people, I mean, it's so blatant, it's beautiful, and they don't see it. No, they can't see it. And so the same thing happened when we were at the eclipse. I was taking pictures of like the pink rays of balls of compassion of Christ coming out of the sun during the eclipse from the corona, and the guy, with an iPhone, and the guy next to me has this huge telescope and all kinds of filters, and he's looking at the pictures. How come I can't do those pictures? I don't see that stuff on my. I go, because you're not able to see it yet. If you can't see it with your eye, you can't see it at all. I don't care what technology you use, you're not going to get it. And he didn't grasp it, but it was quite obvious.
So there's different overlays of Earth, different realities almost happening at the same time, because really space and physicality doesn't really exist. What really exists is an energy field of consciousness that we experience within us, within consciousness, and depending on where you're vibrating. Can you explain that, please?
Absolutely. It's actually there. It's what Einstein said. We're living in an illusion. We think it's real, but it's not. And he goes, albeit it's a persistent one. But, it is all energy. There is really nothing else. It is the mind of God. And that every single thing ever imagined by anyone ever, it exists somewhere in the multiverse or the metaverse, however you want to say it. And so you cannot imagine something that doesn't already exist somewhere and sometime. And so it's all within us. The imagination of man or your mind is projecting it on the field of your consciousness by your ego projection of what it is you feel you need to experience. But as you get to the point where, like when you die or something like that, and your spirit leaves that body projection, you realize that there is no out there. It's in there. Like in the movie What the Bleep, there actually is, the quantum physicists have found this. There is no out there. It's in there. And so it's all perception. And we are creating it with our imaginations. Those that are attached to the source field are creating it through what the experiences and things they need to experience, to learn, to go through, and to go through ascension. And it's tracks the experiences they need through prayer and meditation and thinking and all of those. And so those that aren't attached don't experience it that way. And they think this is absolutely real, but it's like, a lot of shamans say at one point they laughed to themselves, I have become stupid because I thought this is real. It's not real. And so, it's like in my death experience where I was traveling through the universe, but it was within me. And I was like, everything everywhere. And I asked what happened, said, you died. And I'm like, okay. And it was like, I realized that everything everywhere is the one source, the one God of all creation. It was really obvious. And I'm traveling through that energy field of the mind of God. That's why when they look at the universe now, they're starting to notice, first it was the egg carton universe that had like a structure where all of the regular galaxies are on an egg carton layout. And then they found out that as they got further into it and looking at other frequencies outside of the spectrums they had been, it looks more like a human brain. That the galaxies and all of the interconnection fields and the Birkeland currents that connect all the stars and all of this, it looks just like a human brain. That's why it said God created us in his own image, or in its own image, because we are the same.
Well, there is one awareness, one being, and it gets, divided almost into different human beings. And see, what I understand is that the soul, we have this, if something is separate, then it's an illusion, because there is no, it's the illusion of separation. So even a soul, to a point, it's another level of the matrix, because the awareness, which is God, source field, creates a soul so that it can use the soul as a vehicle to experience duality.
Yes, it's playing a game with itself, so to speak, to forget that it's God, and experience through some separation and reduction that it's a soul, and all the souls are the same, and it's experiencing all of these different realities as and the separation and actually believing it at the time. It's really strange, and I know this is so deep, most people are going to go, "You're out of your mind." But I'm totally aware of this because I've had a lot of experiences especially in this lifetime, but in another one, a couple others. So that is correct.
So what I understand is that God alone, let's call it awareness, when everything collapses, no more separation, no more illusion of separation, and it's just awareness.
Right.
Awareness does not have self-awareness because then it means it's an I. There's an I, and there is no I because there is no identity. So that's why it creates an illusion so that it could remember itself through awakening. What do you think about that?
It's kind of like, yes, it's kind of like when we have a dream. And in the dream, sometimes you might even be somebody else, or you might have an avatar, or you might actually, be experiencing things you've couldn't experience. And so if you think of, is that dream a place or is it in your mind? Well, a lot of times it's actually a place, but a lot of times it's actually in your mind. And you can pick that dream up if you're adept at lucid dreaming a decade, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later and see that that dream has continued onward. You created a reality within your mind and it's continuing within your awareness. So again, we're co-creators. And so the beings in there are going about their lives and you go back to Earth and in that dream, and it may be a million years later. There's been great grandchild, down the line grandchildren and civilizations and come and gone and all kinds of things. So it's the same exact thing within too, as you go within, and then they're doing the same thing, and then within them and within them. So within every atom is an entire another multiverse. And it just keeps going down and down and down forever. And so that field of consciousness, once the creation comes, it unmanifests it, and it, so to speak, contemplates contemplates the experience within a darkness of peace, utter quietness, and contemplates it, or just, so the only word I can use, but for the divine oneness, you can't really come up with the correct word. And then at a certain point, it's seven durations in that awareness. It then recreates again another multiverse and does the same thing. And it does that over and over and over again. And each multiverse has differences and could be anything it wants. But it's to experience self, like you said.
Wow, I love it. It's amazing. I could go on for hours, but Gene, we are running out of time, and I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you very, very much. I think we've covered a lot in this space of time, but is there anything else, Gene, that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Because the CME is coming, work on your spirituality. That means learn your ego, learn what thoughts are yours. And you have a bad ego and a good ego, and comb out the bad one and get those thoughts gone. A lot of those thoughts are demonics and other things in your head. Also, now since the jab, it could be you're tapped into the cloud, and so do protocols to get that out of you, so you're not tapped and uploaded into the cloud. And so, in the meantime, work on your meditation and prayer and your spirituality and your truth, and try to be as truthful and honest and compassionate and forgiving. Because realize from what we said that everything is part of us. So when you don't forgive somebody, you don't forgive yourself. It's all interconnected. And so you would be amazed when you just say, okay, what was the lesson of this really, really terrible thing that happened, or this situation with this person that was really hard on me? And then you learn the lesson, just God bless you, thank you for the lesson. And, you can decide whether you feel you need to repeat it or not, because if you got it, you don't. If you don't want to repeat it, you don't have to. So it's all part of the learning. And so that's where I would say is work on your spirituality, yourself, your compassion, your truth, your peace. Above all is peace within yourself, a total, utter peace of contentment, of understanding and accepting all of what your life is and all of what it will be to merge with the oneness, the divine oneness. Thank you, Nick.
I love it. Thank you, Gene. It's absolute pleasure. And we'll speak again very soon. You take care and God bless. Bye bye.
God bless. Thank you, Nick.